Joe Scarice, your mortgage lending specialist here at Work Your Money podcast. It's hosted by Michelle Wong. I am in substitute of her today in regards to she was not available to come down to Philadelphia at the time. And I invited a few real estate investors to come in. And this is something I typically don't do, which is nice. It's always nice to kind of have a transformation in video, interviewing some newer real estate investors. I have Thomas, and I have Ali, and I have Rich McCluskey, who has some experience in real estate. And we typically don't interview the real estate investor. We typically interview the real estate professional, the service, and or the realtor. And I think this is a great perspective because these gentlemen are hearing 25 different things at 25 different blogs, 25 different sites. They're talking to 25 different people, and at the same time trying to build a plan for themselves and what is capable and what is not capable. So I think this is a good time to, when people call me and say, hey, you want to pick my brain? Well, let's go on video and let's pick my brain a little bit, and we can kind of figure out financial resume possibilities with what your goals are. So we got to tie that in too. So why don't you just do a nice introduction, a little overview of who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, give a company name, things of that nature. Okay. What do you do by day?
Yeah, my name is Ali. I'm a software developer by day. I moved into Center City about a year ago. Prior to that, I lived in Bucks County in Landmark. So my goal in real estate is to actually just get my feet wet. This is going to be my first investment in real estate. I work for a stock market analytics company as a software developer, so I know the stock market and how, on average, you can probably get a 15% return from the S&P 500 if you just parked your money there. But a majority of those returns are actually from stocks that pay out dividends, and those dividends you have to reinvest into the stock market to actually realize those gains. So what attracted me to real estate was that if I can buy a cash flow positive property, I could just reinvest that into other properties, and in the same time, people that I rent out to can literally be paying down my mortgage, so I could be building equity at the same time. So it's a similar ROI, but the difference with real estate is that I could actually make that appreciation and the equity is paid off by somebody else. So my main goal is to just get my feet wet with a cash flow positive property. A lot of the information online, they say you could get to X amount of units in 3 to 5 years, but a lot of those markets are out in the Midwest where properties are like $40,000. So I want to see what it's like here where property is like 3 times that. The lowest, or the cheapest property you can find is probably, you said 130, 150, I mean. So I just want to pick your brain about that. That's basically my plan.
I just put some notes down to talk about that.
Hello everybody, my name is Tomas, and I actually moved with my wife about a year and a half ago to Princeton. I work in Trenton. I'm an engineer. And so the reason I'm looking into investment is we all have 401ks, which is usually tied to stocks and bonds. I'm a bit anxious about the market and what it's going to do in the future. I think it might be overheating. And so basically I'm starting to look into diversifying. And definitely the solid walls is a different type of investment. Plus, actually, from my family, my grandfather was pretty prolific investors back in France, and that knowledge was kind of lost with my dad, who didn't care about it. So I think I got family history, so there's no reason I couldn't do well. So really, definitely, it's there's a lot to learn before I think getting to the point where you can buy a property. And what I've been doing is actually through some podcasts. Bigger Pockets is one of them. I think it's really a treasure trove of knowledge people are willing to share, and I think it's the best way to get to speed quickly. So, and I'm here today to learn more from you guys and make connections and learn some more.
Rich?
Yep. Hi, Richard McCluskey. I'm a professional working in healthcare consulting and actually work in Princeton. So, Tomas, you're right around the corner. And I live in Morrisville, Pennsylvania, so that's in Bucks County, and I used to live in Philadelphia before. So I had a primary property. My real estate experience is a primary property in South Philly, which I turned into a rental after we moved. So we have that one rental. My strength, me and my wife, the strength we have financially is that we recently paid down all of our debt. So the only debt we have left is our real estate investment property plus our primary residence. And what we're looking to do next is take a small amount of capital we have and to go purchase a new property that has a small amount of cash flow. And we're looking to do that in Bucks County. We're also interested in Trenton, which is nearby, and the properties are very reasonably priced. And we're also interested still in South Philly, which is a little bit expensive now, as Joe mentioned earlier on this podcast episode. And we're also interested in the north parts of Philly leading up to Bucks County.
Great. It's a really nice mix because, believe it or not, you have a lot of relevancies. All right. One, I'm glad we can blow up things with you two because you're engineers, so we can fix just about anything. The elevator breaks, I know I could get you guys jumping on board. And then we have a medical component here, so we can, just in case somebody gets sick, you can help us out. So it's good. And a lot of nice relevancies. So a couple things I'm gonna point out, and I'm gonna start with Ali. You brought up an interesting perspective because we are in the top capital markets in Philadelphia, right? And we're in the top 6, top 7, depending on who you have a conversation with. Pittsburgh's creeping up. But really, Pittsburgh out to the Midwest are your Rust Belt cities. And you're not seeing major announcements as much as you're hearing between New York, Philadelphia, and D.C., almost like a triangle, right? The Rust Belts are going to feed a little into that. Pittsburgh will see impact always because they have strong college and university presences. And they have some mid-sized Fortune 1000 companies that are there. I think they just lost one. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is. But really, once you hit past Pittsburgh, you're in the Rust Belt cities. Now your price point's completely different. Your return is completely different, but you're off-site. You're a plane ride away, not a car ride away. So, most of you weren't around when Reader's Digest was published. The big thing when you invest in real estate was to stay within an hour where you live, so you had a comfort level. I see people obviously buying multifamily complexes and things of that nature in the millions, where you're going to have a larger service to provide you comfort in investing in maybe some of the Midwest states. But when right now, the conversation is basically a 1 through 4 residential home, right? So you want to be within a comfort zone of where you're from, your familiarity with building your power team, your master mechanics, your property management company, your realtors of choice, your loan officers of choice, inspectors of choice. So you want to get comfortable with it. You're not buying a puppy. You're buying your first home, correct? And you want to play the house hacking route or the first-time home buyer route to monetize what you pay in rent. And in lieu, somebody else is going to pay your rent. And then you're going to take that substitution of money and layer that into maybe another equity acquisition toward a purchase on your next home, which will be a single-family through 2-family maybe. And then also now you're a landlord, you're a home investor, you're a homeowner, and now you could look at a lot of possibilities because everything's paying for you to move forward, right, over a certain amount of time. So I think in your direction, really it's a matter of what your financial capabilities are, where we keep you within a bankable realm, meaning will you have the proper reserves to support the properties? Will you have the proper down monies or the proper credit, proper financial resume? You have 2 years of W-2 income, right? So that's right off the bat, that's great. Credit, where it's at, we have to look at that and how that works out. And then we have to identify price point based upon available funds today, whether you liquidate some of your investments, or you can take a one-time pull out from your retirement money. We can look at 60% of your retirement money as what? Reserves. And if you have liquid cash, that's your money that you're going to put into the deal, right? So the question is, do you want to come over the border from where you're from, Bucks? Are you living in New Jersey, or where are you living now?
I'm in Center City right now.
So you're in Center City, so you'll live just about anywhere in a sense from a neighborhood perspective. But it's got to make sense for you for transportation to get back into the city.
Yeah. So
then we were having a conversation previously with a real estate agent about the L train and other forms of transportation, and we would have to weigh out that cost benefit. Is that a property that you're going to want to facilitate and hold long term? One, to show that you're in the green room, you're an investor. It's not just about a podcast anymore, right? You got to know a little more other than hanging a picture. Okay, so you're going to have some sense of what is going on in the property, and that's where you hire professionals to learn. So I think you're in a great place to kind of take advantage of cash flow properties because that 2 through 4 area has diminishing inventory, but then the affordability is based upon what your affordability is. I mean, like somebody, because everybody's talking about house hacking, right? So we have to figure out what your price point is and what's realistic. Because a 2 through 4 family, even if it was slowed down in the market, right, you're still cash flowing. Somebody can't buy that house, so they have to rent that apartment. Okay, so you're going to have it for a few extra years potentially. Or you can look at a government housing too as well, which is a third-party pay way. Could be good, could be a couple different ways, but that's a discussion you have with your power team, right? So with Thomas, you live in New Jersey currently, right?
Correct.
So I can only fathom the taxes in Princeton Township. So
It's pretty high, yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, you could buy a great, beautiful 2-family house, but you're not going to cash flow and monetize your overhead.
Okay.
So you and your wife have to have a realistic discussion of where she really wants to live, and you say yes, dear, right? So, do you own a 1-family now?
No, actually, we rent.
You rent now. So she wants to be comfortable if you do the house hack play, right? 2 through 4, or is she just happy with a 1-family house? Really, the decision making has nothing to do with you. So, fair to say, and you're agreeing with me for the most
I do,
part.
yeah.
The last 2 words in an argument when you're married is yes, dear. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So you have to have that supported. It's very important because it'll lead into Rich in a few minutes. But I think a couple things I wrote down. Your W-2. Is your wife W-2?
Yes.
Okay. So that's dual income, keeping your debt to income lower and your financial capabilities better. You were talking about the market. I do have a educational presentation coming up in 2018. Everybody wants to talk about self-directed IRAs, right? It's a great way to push it into your retirement money if you're worried to get that 8 to 10 or 12 or 15% return that was in the market. The caveats of self-directed IRA money. You're never going to see it until you retire. And all transactions, even the utility bill, have to go through payment through that self-directed IRA. So you need to leave reserves in your self-directed IRA, and you have to also participate money into the self-directed IRA to keep that balance. So all checks that are cut are coming from a self-directed IRA account. Okay? Very important whether you bought a 1-family, 2-family, or whatever family. You can't have anything in your name. It's all through the self-directed IRA. There's some other options that you might want to look and investigate. I don't see it promoted enough or at all, really, in bigger pockets because maybe they don't have somebody that understands it, right? Is asset-based securities, meaning that there's investment groups out there that will take a snapshot of your portfolio, conservative snapshot, and potentially set up a line against your balance sheet at 60 cents on the dollar or under. So we're going to have a financial analyst come out and talk about that as another option, because that money only costs about 2 or 3%, but you can use it in your name. And not a lot of people want to come out and talk because there's some compliance components too, because they don't want to be looking like they're selling that idea. And not every retirement account ties into that. But even if your retirement account stays where it is today, you're still using 60% of that as what? Toward your reserves, because if you pulled it all out, you get hit with what? 40%. So, and that's based on the current tax balance. We were having a big discussion before the video. So just taking it based on the circumstances today, that's where a lender will recognize your reserves. Typically, a good lender is going to ask you most amount of money, least amount of activity. That's a savings account, right? You remember that quote, right? Savings account and a retirement account. If you have other accounts, it's great. But if there's enough money for us to have our discussion, if we had to pull in that other account, that's fine, but we might not need it. You've got $100,000 in your retirement. I'm looking at $60,000 in reserves, and you got $40,000 in savings. You're buying your 2 through 4 family house. Now you have to figure out neighborhood designations or community designations on a 2-year play, to 3-year play, because you really don't plan on staying in that multifamily. But one, it gives you the landlord experience that you need and show on your tax returns, where then you can thus buy that next home, and now you're really a true landlord. And that money might be able to facilitate even the mortgage that you're paying buying the next home. So you might be globally in really good shape with a very low debt to income, but then you have to keep an eye out on reserve base, meaning, if you have an investment property, you have to have 6 months of reserves sitting somewhere. So if the PITI, meaning principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is $1,000 a month, before you buy anything, you have to have $6,000 sitting on the sideline somewhere. So that $60,000 available in retirement, you just ate up $6,000 of it. Now, if you own a primary up and above the 4 units, say it's another $1,000 a month. I'm going to take 3 months into consideration. So that's another $3,000. Now I just ate up $9,000 of your reserve base of that $60,000. So you got room, right? But if everything's paying itself and then you're addressing your savings to increase from, you put some money into these deals and you went down to 20, now it's back up to 40 a lot quicker. Now you're already looking at that third property. Maybe you will consider a rehab and flip, a rehab and hold, buying something below market and look at it from a cash flow play, see if it ties into your global debt to income. Meaning you bring that property in and your debt to income doesn't change, and you recover all your money that's in the deal, meaning cash on cash return, somewhere between 12 and 24 months. So you take your NOI or return on investment, growth strategy, blah, 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 and take that, whatever that true net is, divide that by the amount of participation. I think we had a discussion about this too. And if it's under 24 months and it's an investment property, that's a strong play. Okay? So that's some things that I came from you that I thought were interesting. And then what we'll do is once I finish with Rich, then we'll kind of go back and forth with a couple questions. Is that fair? Sure. So listening to Rich, I mean, obviously we're working together in obtaining that opportunity. You house hacked before house hacking was...
Once upon a time, yeah.
Correct, before it was famous.
2007, before it was...
before it was even a term, you know what I mean? I remember I created this word in my head, Resi-mercial, and I started Google searching it back in the day, and it wasn't around. Now it's around, Resi-mercial, you know what I mean? So a couple things that I would like to point out. Buying cheap is not always good, okay? I mean, Trenton looks very attractive, right? It's not very attractive at 9 o'clock at night when you're walking on a very dark street by yourself. It's like the death march, okay, to get to your car, because there's a reason for that. Because it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous city in certain circumstances. I've owned in Newark. I've owned in Jersey City. I've owned. Now again, I'm not. I have no political aspiration. I'm just a straightforward lender and a real estate professional. And when you're picking up a house for $50,000, there's a reason why it's $50,000, okay? And there's a reason why a bank won't refinance it either. Because they don't want to be in that market. Why? Let's think about it. It's a $30,000 mortgage. Anybody will pay that. Come on, it's a great deal. I'm cash flowing of $800 a month. You hear this at different events and different blocks, right? But they don't mention that when the recovery of the asset, when you get foreclosed on, when the tenant potentially rips everything down to the studs, and you have to restart, and you don't have the reserve base that you should have looked at and evaluated with that loan officer that gave you the $30,000 mortgage, right? There's a house in Lambertville, $400,000. The mortgage is $300,000. So you got a $300,000 mortgage. You got a $30,000 mortgage. What are the chances of the Lambertville property going into foreclosure and me being able to recover all my debt on that mortgage and maybe even more based on the current market, comparatively to Trenton, New Jersey, where that $30,000 mortgage, the recovery of that asset, the property won't even be worth $20,000. You lose 10% typically on a foreclosure. The bank loses that amount of money. Where would you rather lose your 10% and your fast, rapid recovery? I mean, bank REOs, if the price rate is going like that, they're gone. Yeah. So
that's why everybody's buying cash in Trenton typically.
Correct, because there's really not financial institutions willing to risk their personal portfolio money.
Some of the local credit unions, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that'll say they'll do Trenton. That's great, but God forbid we have a really another turn down in the market. And I mean, I'm not hearing about any major developments in Trenton on the waterfront.
Yeah, I mean the Roebling lofts just opened, which are like market
beautiful when you come down.
It's very nice.
You're going into West Trenton,
and
gorgeous.
Of course, I think it's still in the rumor mill, but Trenton does have, I think they call it the 257 plan, but they are actually planning on turning that Route 29, which is by the river, actually into more like a boulevard with tree lines. So I think they're starting, but so there's really some revitalization rumors, but. That's of course the question is, do you want to invest now for the potential high payoff if you're buy and hold in 10, 15 years? So you never know. Like I lived in Philly my whole life, so basically I know what it was like. It would be like 1990, people didn't want to buy around South Street in Queens Village. It was like people were giving away houses. Now it's like $500,000 for
let's stay with the trend mindset, okay? Yeah. Let's stay with the trend idea. Will there always be revitalization? Yes and no. It really depends on who's in command.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you have a strong political
Oh, yeah.
base that really understands business? I mean, I know a couple other, small cities that as soon as the mayor changes and the council changes, it's almost like they have to restart like completely. And we're talking about the smaller cities like up in the Lehigh Valley area. You go further out. I mean, the political machines change direction, and we'll flip that over to Camden. There is so much activity and announced developments on the waterfront of Camden. I mean, I hear now they're going to knock down the baseball field to do something else. There's talks of it. And you still got a Dranoff building sitting down there like a hollow skeleton. But you got billions of dollars now. You got Subaru that just moved in there. You got Campbell that expanded, didn't move. A lot of development going on along that waterfront. A lot of development announcements there. But how long will it take to impact the residential?
Sure.
I went to a development that was way far ahead of its time. Developers out of Newark, New Jersey, that know how to put really good condos together, and they had that little guy from the Chamber of Commerce with their very tall scissors, and they cut the red ribbon, and you had police blockades on both sides of that corridor, and then also, the guy was like 4 foot tall, and he had a scissors the same size as him. It was hysterical. But then you go one block one way or one block the other way, you got some serious open air drug activity on both sides, and you have this announcement of this major development, which ended up being a rental building anyway. They couldn't sell the condos. It was an attempt.
Yeah, right.
I think you got a decade of redevelopment in Camden, and I think you got more than a decade in Trent, because both obviously cities attract
I'd agree with
government housing. So you're not moving people out of government housing. You'll have more than chaos at the front of city halls there, and it's needed in certain circumstances. Are there circumstances where people take advantage of those? Yeah, that happens, but for the most part, it's there for a reason, to help people in need. Is that something you want to be familiarized with? Are you sitting here to find out about Section 8 housing in Trenton? Do you know anybody at Section 8 housing in Trenton right now?
Yeah, I know a few people who are running rentals where I think they have Section
Not the
8
investor.
housing,
Do you know
but,
direct people at the Section 8 housing right now?
I mean, I may have met somebody in passing,
In
but I
passing.
don't know them.
I do my due diligence before. I would do a lot more due diligence than just looking at it and saying, hey, the numbers are cheap. Cash flow looks real good if I can keep this thing stabilized. I'd build my power team of who are the people you go to. Like, example, here in Philadelphia, you have the Landlord Association. It's HAPCO. If you got a question on eviction, you got a question on any rule that's going on, these guys and gals are at City Hall in defense for who? The landlord. That's why you pay for the membership. There's 4,000 plus members. Okay? You need to, if Trenton definitely does not have a landlord association. Okay? I can tell you that for a fact. Yes, there's a RIA presence through SJI, South Jersey Investors. Is that enough to make you familiarized with Section 8? Oh, my property management company can take care of that. I never depend on a second party for everything. I want to know what I'm talking about. God forbid I got to jump in on that parade and take it back from that management company or maintenance group and facilitate it myself, right? In another way, on participation where you gentlemen are, I know they don't teach this anymore in grammar school or high school anymore, but I bring it up as a great analogy to real estate is the British Bulldogs versus the Spanish Armada. Anybody ever remember that story?
Nope.
That's showing off my age. 30 years ago when I graduated high school, another 4 years going back to grammar school, but it was a wonderful story. It's a battle, so it wasn't like, happy time, but British Bulldogs were smaller, sleeker ships that weaved in and out of the bigger, larger ships that the Spanish Armada created. Guess who won that battle? The British Bulldogs. Okay, because they kept hitting, moving, going like that. It's almost like a wrestling match. When I was in wrestling, if you knew you couldn't keep somebody down on the mat, what would you do? You take them down and you let them up, right? So it's kind of the same relevancy. So maybe you look at the cost benefit of how much you're going to have participated in, and what is your cost benefit getting it back, and is small, lower amount better? Or are you going to be more involved? Okay, are you going to be there every weekend painting something, fixing a railing because you don't want the management company to jack you up on 20% of the service calls? There's a lot of things you got to think about. Okay, the type of tenant above $1,000 a month is a lot different than the type of tenant below $1,000 a month paying rent. You're not going to be there every day fixing mass destruction of a kitchen or a bathroom, ripping railings out. We just had there's a speaker that goes around that talks about how he facilitates his properties. It was like 100. No toilet railings, no towel railings, nothing where they could pull out, no fans, just the cap lighting. I mean, he is trying to eliminate any possibilities of people just ripping things out of the wall or the ceiling. So his turnaround time in getting the place re-rented is a lot quicker. All the rooms have wooden floors. Okay, I mean, unless you're drilling into the wooden floor, you can do a good cleaning and turn around and hopefully facilitate a new tenant right away. So from our discussions, what are some of the things that come to light for you, Ali?
What are some?
What are some things that come to mind that you might want to facilitate with this discussion?
Well, I'm assuming I'm the youngest one here, and
The beard is fake.
no, just that's my Middle Eastern genes. And I have no debt, which I'm really grateful for. So I want to use that to my advantage and be conscientious of having a plan in the next 5 years where I could say I want to have this many units in the next 5 years or whatever amount of years. So I just want that plan in place on paper. I don't want to get down to 2 or 3 units and then the bank say we're not going to lend you any more money because you're.
I run into it all the time where investors go crazy, and whoever they're going with doesn't have a concern about understanding reserves. And then they come to me and say, hey, listen, my loan officer on the last closing told me I don't have enough reserves to go. So I said, well, you're working with a really bad loan officer. Most likely he or she is just trying to close deals, is not concerning themselves with a big plan. And I'm very direct about it. I'm like, well, what would you like me to do? Can't you get me an imaginary loan where they create loans in their head? I mean, and that's the problem with some of these blog sites and stuff. People imagine or create loans in their head of what's possible, and it really isn't based on the dynamics of lending. Okay, so and you can't be gifted money for buying an investment property. It's only for what? Own or occupy, right? And there's some great programs out there with 3% down, or 3.5% down, or even 5% down, where they're conventional government. Okay, so in your situation, you want to set the plan of what your capabilities are over the next 36 months or so, and to stay reserve heavy. Because I'll tell you, I get at least 2 or 3 calls a month from people that have worked with non-transactional lenders, meaning they don't own properties themselves. They live at home with family. They have their only single-family home. They don't own any investments, okay, and giving poor direction because they're just worried about closing a transaction, right? So you need to vent whoever you build on your power team and see evidence that they are what? Active. They understand. I understand what you're talking about. Well, if they've never done other than doing a loan for somebody to understand, that's not understanding it. Understanding is actually have gone through the transaction, right? What questions do you have to us?
So you talked twice about the power team, which I think is I completely understand the concept, and I think it's about surrounding yourself with people that know and can sniff what would work and what wouldn't, and maybe steer you away from risk and more towards maybe more safe investments. So my perspective, I don't have a lot of knowledge to bring, at least on the real estate side, to more experienced guys. So how would you advise to build this power team around me, knowing that I've got more to gain than they do? I mean, they probably have limited times and limited people they can spend the time on to mentor.
That's a great question. You can go and spend a lot of money at a lot of the places where you'll be in the Diamond Club or the Silver Club or the Bronze Club, and all of a sudden you look at your credit card, you have a $50,000 bill, right? That's one way, and then you don't have your reserves anymore, right? And your DTI is at 60 based on every dollar you make. Or you could identify events by subject matter. Just anybody, you guys ever been to Lorenzo's down on South Street? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell I like
the biggest, but not tastiest.
I mean, the 12-pack is just perfect, actually. It works out really well. But that's a massive boardwalk pie, right? How many little thin slices can you make probably out of that for a kid party? What do you think? 50 slices? One of those big boardwalk
for the
pies?
kids, yeah.
Yeah, right? 50? Do you think there's 50 different subjects of real estate that you need to kind of identify without going into analysis paralysis, just attending specific events to attend that will facilitate what your immediate needs are. Right now, your immediate need is probably a 2 through 4 family, as long as your wife says yes. So that's one thing, because she has to be comfortable with the neighborhood. And I'm trying to sell her on it. She's right over there, so I'm trying to work her a little bit.
Doing great.
You know, I'm doing good? Okay, great. So that's one thing. Once you do that, wouldn't you want to attend events based on 2 through 4 units, whether owner-occupant and or landlord? I would then go into that area, okay? And then you can start peeling the onion and putting your first and second string people together for yourself.
Yep.
Don't worry about when you own it and you have maybe a management company facilitate. Just for your own 2 plumbers, 2 electricians, and just have a conversation. Like, how's your service? You know, what do I need to do? What's the worst case scenario? Like, I have an HVAC guy that, by all means, has been unbelievable. Okay, I have 2 HVAC guys that are very good. I have 2 plumbing people. Somebody, I'm a source as well because I'm partaking in all these events, and you establish this database. You need to put together your master mechanics, your handyman, whatever. Get a couple. I mean, Google searching is easy, right? And then go check in the Better Business Bureau, doing some investigation. If you can't find anything on the individual that says they can fix everything, I would have a concern, right? So there's the things you got. Finding a real estate agent, you could, fall on one. That's easy, but you want to fall on one that's going to be transactional, understands your capabilities. How many 2 families have you sold in the past 6 months, based on the neighborhoods I'm comfortable with? How many 3 families have you? Have you ever sold a 3-family house? Can you provide me evidence? I could say yes to you, right? Would you believe me?
Have to check.
There you go. Hey, I don't need the personal people's information, but can you show me a property that you sold, that you proved to that you sold these type of properties? And then you look at their evidence, they only sold single-family homes in the last 6 months. Does it really mean they know how to understand a 2-family and the dynamics, the common area maintenance as a whole? What type of tenant am I identifying in there? Do you facilitate rentals in that market? Have you facilitated rentals in that market? Now, is this just because I've been around a lot longer? But these are basic questions you could outline.
Yep.
Okay? But the biggest key, when I feel, and I'm going to come to Rich, and he'll agree with me, I think, is a home inspection. Okay? Home inspection is the doom and gloom of all properties, but at least you see it up front what the doom and gloom is. Is it a cost-benefit relationship for you to still move forward after that home inspection? I mean, I've never seen a home inspection they don't basically tell you the house is going to fall down. Okay, it's going to be gone in a year. It's going to fall apart. It's going to disintegrate. It's amazing. Almost like the entire basement's going to fall apart in the next 20 years, possibly. You know what I mean? Or the roof.
40 or
you only have 8 years left. And there's only one roof on it right now. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, sure.
It depends on how you write it up.
Yeah.
And then they take these awful pictures. I know inspectors do video. Really gets ugly. I don't know about this. I have seen just unbelievable possibilities in inspections that probably will never bear fruit. But that's their job, because they want that realtor to know that they're doing everything in their power to protect the buyer, but it's also screwing potentially the seller and potentially screwing up a deal. So you got to look at it, you got to just kind of work it through and weigh out those cost benefits, and then you bring a GC in behind it. Like, I do pre-inspections of all my properties that I flip. So I'm not blindsided with something that the house is falling in. I provided a part of my seller's disclosure when I give it to the realtor that's listing the property on my behalf. Are we good with that?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Rich, what questions do you have?
Well, definitely want to agree with some of the things you were saying about. I think you mentioned the term analysis paralysis at one point.
Yeah, it gets a little ugly sometimes.
And also you know that our recent deal that I was working on for a 2-unit Bucks County basically had the home inspector come in. It was a doom and gloom tale. The house was going to fall down, right? But you also have to take it with a grain of salt. But do you believe it? And in that case, and for that structure, because it was multiple foundation issues, not just one, I had some belief in it. And actually, the reason for walking away from the deal wasn't that it couldn't be fixed, but it's that, in this sort of seller's market, you kind of agree on a sale price that's a little bit too close to being able to cash flow this much, like a very tiny bit. And then the issue is that, yeah, you want to put some concrete pads in to fix this foundation issue or that one. Then you're looking at a fix that you can't really afford on paper.
Well, you also have to see what
And
the
so-
recovery of that money that you would have to put in.
Well, then
And
that's
does that
the-
tie into your cash on cash return?
Right, exactly. Which
Okay.
it would totally eliminate it. So for me, I'm like, okay, that's it, out of the deal. And so, but one interesting question I'd have for you is that in this sort of in this mindset with the realtors I've worked with, great realtors actually. You mentioned so in Bucks County, I worked with Michelle Sheehan. She does mostly sell a lot of single family homes, but she also has investment experience. And then in Trent, I've been working with Carlton Badger, and he has tons of. He's actually invested a lot, so they both actually know how to work with
You're
someone
comfortable
who's
with that.
gonna. Right, exactly.
Now, a couple things that I would
So-
throw in, because I always like picking out realtors, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Has a realtor or a lender, I can pick on loan officers too, I guess. Has anybody ever told you that you could ask for a 2% seller assist on an investment property?
Yeah, sure. And in fact, in the last one we worked on, we tried to
See
do
if that was
that
cost
actually.
benefit?
Yeah,
I mean,
because
4,000. I mean, I think what was the
it was a
purchase
little
price?
tight on cash for me, so I was like, yeah, if you can have the seller assist. They didn't agree to it. That was one of the reasons why I felt like I was up against a wall in terms of price.
But
Kinda
that's why
went
you have a
as
10-day
far as,
loophole into your due diligence to do that inspection, where your weasel clause or whatever you want to call it,
right, exactly.
out of the deal. But sometimes if it's a $200,000 purchase and the $4,000 weighs in as a cost benefit, but structural and foundation issues typically don't always cost $4,000. Usually, for whatever reason, they end up being like $10,000 to $15,000,
Exactly.
and then you take that into your down payment, divide that by your NOI. Now you just went up to 5 years of recovering all your money.
Right.
So you need to keep that at a minimum. And then people just want exaggerated dollar signs just based on certain neighborhoods, school designations, communities, etc. So you're paying sometimes a premium for that.
Yep.
So again, maybe there's some other ways of looking at properties that are typically outside. If you stick with a single family concept, the borderline of Philadelphia and Bucks County, there's a lot of really nice, low price point townhouse communities. Why? The people that don't have kids anymore, they don't want to move out of Philadelphia because they love the benefits of Philadelphia County, but they also maybe like the benefits of Bucks. I know a couple of great gated communities off the Long State Road that you have all those benefits. You still have the Torresdale train station up there that takes you right into the city, that have some really good rental market for that, because somebody maybe doesn't want to own anymore. They want somebody else to take care of the problems. They just sold their house. They got $300,000 in the house in their savings account. Maybe they don't want the aggravation. Maybe one of those communities makes sense from a rental perspective. Maybe they figure, hey, in 5 years I might not even be able to climb the stairs. Maybe I got to move into something that has a walk-in type of circumstance. So, there's some plays there of non-designated 55 plus communities there that could be great long-time investments. I mean, you'll never have a rental issue because the neighbor has a sister that wants to move in, or a mother has a daughter that wants to move in and wants to be closer to family without all the designations of senior housing. So maybe you want to look at some of those. I wouldn't say the condo market. I would say more the townhouse market.
Yeah.
Okay, then the condo market, because I see condos is the first wave of hit if the market does, or when the market does shift. Because, we've heard of non-warrantable condos, right? There's a reason why they're non-warrantable. Maybe the developer owns more than 50% of the units in the building. Maybe there's slip and fall losses that exceed the master insurance liability. Maybe there's HOA payments in arrears 6 months, higher than 10%. Okay, so there's some other niche markets that your price point might maybe be a little lower, but it's a nice safe play. Like we're talking 15% return in the market, but 8% is not too bad, and you can sleep at night. Yeah. You don't want to wake up in the morning and you find out the Chinese market just took a dump, and now you're in trouble over here with the stocks that you're invested in, right? So, and then a lot of people that get stuck in the stock market never want to buy real estate. They like the idea of it and all that, but then they just like the day-to-day activity, because now you run your own retirement accounts going into this new year, right? So you got a lot more flexibility, but it could also be pretty dangerous. So now you're saying, okay, I like to control my destiny with my return on investment and retirement money. But going back to you, Rich, I think your home inspector did you a favor.
Yeah, sure. and there's always that balance, and that's actually something that. So basically, did like this year 2 offers and came, and had 2 contracts, but went out of them because of I thought being too tight on the buy price. So basically, I think if I work on it a little more, I'll get close, and that is the inspector's doing a favor. But I also have to keep in mind the balance of like analysis paralysis versus actually going through with the deal. So
Maybe it's a shift in the neighborhoods that you're trying to identify.
Yeah, that's
maybe you look at more better structured properties that were developed 10, 15, 20 years ago in neighborhoods where, you had to replace that basement. You're still going to recover all your money in the next 24 to 36 months. Then you weigh out the cost benefit of that. Because are you planning on buying another property in the next 24 to 36 months?
right.
We're always actively looking, right? For rent signs, houses are always for sale. And if you know that, when it's for rent, it's for sale. When it's for sale, it's for rent. So, the bodega signs that are out there sometimes are the best ones to call. You find out that person that doesn't want to give you some rope on that, but they might own 15 other properties somewhere else.
Yeah.
And when you're not a licensed agent, they don't feel like you're smothering them in a sale. Oh, I got 15 buyers that'll buy this house today. You're not that. Listen, I'm looking to buy a house because I'm an investor. And the next question they're asking, are you a licensed agent? That throws a slight level down. If you're a good salesperson, you'll be able to get past that. But for an investor, now they feel like they're talking to a human without the,
Sure. So it's an advantage in some situations.
In some situations. I mean, I've been licensed as an agent since 1987. It's never stopped me from buying property.
I have a very specific question.
Sure.
Say you were 26 years old. You know the markets just as you do now. You're pre-approved for a house, or a property I should say, under 150. You want it to be cash flow positive. Where in the Philadelphia area, or even Bucks County or the immediate counties, would you go?
Me personally, if I was 24, I wouldn't live in Philadelphia. I'd be in New York. But
Right.
I'd be having a good time. But I'd stay in Center City and party like a rock star. But otherwise, if you wanted to get outside of the higher parts there, the 150 neighborhoods, along the waterfront. Certain neighborhoods in the waterfront. I mean,
Where you would get more rent than
well, I mean, it diminishes as you go along the waterfront right now because the neighborhoods shift. But an area also that you feel safe. Like I know a gentleman that grew up in Morristown, New Jersey, beautiful town, right?
Yeah.
He is not moving into Kensington. He's just not.
Right.
He don't care about the 150. He doesn't care about the cash flow. He's slightly scared. So it's really, I lived in Newark, New Jersey. I lived in Jersey City, New Jersey. I lived in Brooklyn before the whole explosion of real estate out on Henry Street. I don't get frightened by much, but now I'm 47. I don't move as quick as a 27-year-old. Okay? So I look at, hey, if I walk out my door, am I feeling safe? Are my neighbors keeping an eye on my house when I'm at work? Is somebody ripping my mailbox literally off my wall and taking my mail? Or those are little things.
If you don't live there, should you care about that? I mean, if it's just a rental, should I care about that?
You know that you're eventually not going to live there. So who's going to replace you when you move out? Who is that person? So you got to identify the demographics, the rental income. It all goes back to your comfort level or risk. And that's where analysis paralysis comes in too.
Yeah, sure.
You'll look at 20 places at 150 and you're like, oh, none of these work because I wouldn't live here. But you're not going to live there more than a year because you have to stay in it for a year, right? So that's a discussion with a lending professional that has direct contacts to those neighborhoods. I'm not going to disclose maybe because that could be in the wrong place for you. Sure. And I saw a 3-unit in a certain neighborhood and the gentleman was like, I'm not going to go home with anything here. He was probably correct. But, I'm not there to advise him that. I can't say anything about that. That's really now. That's it's a discussion where we would have to sit down, be part of your crowd team, and try to bring the deal put together, that deal in front of you. So, any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank the gentleman for being interactive in this interview. It's definitely something different I've not done. And I really appreciate basically getting you guys up here. And this is Joe Segrees, your mortgage lending specialist, standing in here for Michelle Wong from the Work Your Money podcast. And we'll see you soon again with another interview. Have a great day.